Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey y'all, we are live. Welcome, welcome everyone to Marriage Momentum Monday. Not Sunday, but Monday. Instagram is going to let you know we are going live. And today we are talking about marriage myths. Okay, marriage myths and how damaging they can be. My guest is already here. Awesome. We're just going to bring her right in. Hey, Kaara. All right, let me say hello to everyone. Welcome, welcome. Let me go ahead and invite her. Invite her to join the live. And as a moderator, let's see. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for joining. Let's see if it's going to let her come on. Come on, Instagram. Let's do this. Let's do this. All right. So while we are waiting for Instagram to add her, hi. How are you?
Good.
Awesome. So glad to have you here. I know Instagram is just letting the people know that
Yes.
we're live. We're live. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you
You're welcome.
so much. Okay, so I know Kaara via our therapist network. So I'm going to just have her tell you guys a little bit about herself. Because when I met her, I was like, oh my gosh, girl, you are like from another mister. Like, so
My
insane.
therapist soul sister.
I'm like, wow, where the heck you hiding? So I'm really happy for you to be on today. So, okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself as far as what do you do? I already kind of gave like a sneak peek to the people to let them know you are dually licensed in Florida and Georgia.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, as far as what you do and all the good things.
Yes. So I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and as you say, I'm licensed both in Georgia and Florida. I'm a licensed clinical therapist, and I specialize in working with individuals with trauma, new moms, and couples therapy. So those are kind of like my three niche areas that Oh, yes. We
Yeah,
do not disturb.
I don't want the calls to interrupt the live, okay?
All right. Yes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for coming in. Sorry, had a little call interruption.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for those of everyone who's just coming on, share a little bit about yourself once again, please, if you don't mind.
Yes, no problem. So my name is Kaara Kiddoe. I am a licensed clinical social worker, a therapist. I see clients remotely in Georgia and Florida. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, originally hail from the Caribbean, from Trinidad and Tobago. My husband and I, we have a ministry together called Authentic Marriages, and we do couples workshops and couples retreats and destination retreats. This year we had our retreat in Belize. Last year we did Jamaica. So, we love to combine our skills with our love for travel when we do those retreats.
Okay, that's so cool. Like, tell us a little bit because I love to do like an annual anniversary trip with my husband just to okay, we made it through another year of marriage, thank God. But how did you start doing doing the retreats? Like you guys went to Jamaica, you said Belize, how
Yeah.
did you guys get to
And
that?
our first international retreat was in Aruba in 2021. And it really was just born out of this idea because we both love to travel. We're both from the Caribbean. We live in the US. And we felt like it was a good way to like invite friends to join us along on an adventure while simultaneously working on your relationship and getting a lot of like good quality relationship information, and but in a beautiful environment, in a fun environment. Like one of the goals of our retreat is to have fun, right? It is to have fun. It is to connect. It is to connect with other like-minded couples like us in our community. And so that's basically like we were just kind of driven or led to start that. And, we're just kind of going to see where the Lord takes it, because there's no telling where these things can go, and so I really, really love traveling. That's just one of my passions, my hobbies, and I thought it was a really good way to kind of marry both the profession and the hobby at the same time.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, so you also said you do couples workshops. Tell us a little bit, like, what does that entail?
Yeah. So because of COVID in 2020, all of us went online on Zoom. Zoom became a thing that nobody realized until COVID, right? And so that allowed us an opportunity to do virtual couples workshops. And so we did a lot of free workshops during the pandemic in 2020 and 2021. And that's sort of how we launched Authentic Marriages. And then out of that, we started doing private couples coaching groups for couples who wanted to dive deeper and really kind of do the heavy lifting. Because, as a therapist, when it comes to doing the work, and it's an emotional process. It's a time commitment process. And so it's a more engaged process, and so the couples coaching group is a lot more interactive and a lot more in depth in terms of like what it is that we cover. But in terms of the workshops, I think it's really a great place for couples to just get healthy information, because there's a lot of craziness on these interwebs.
Let me tell you. Okay, Carl, can we have a real moment? Can we have a real moment? As therapists, as wives, there's a lot of relationship advice out on these streets. And I struggle. As a wife that married years. I'm a marriage and family therapist. And so we're trained in so many different techniques and theories to really help build relationship, a strong family unit. And the things that I see, I'm like, oh, this
I'd
is
be
not
like,
good.
what
Not good.
is this? I'd be like, and the thing is, it's like, I think for the lay person who is not a trained therapist, you really don't know like who to trust or what information is reliable, or, and it's just like,
That is that's true, because sometimes certain things can sound good.
Yes.
It's not really for the good of the relationship.
Exactly.
Okay, a perfect leeway to talk about these myths. Okay, guys, this is how I want you guys to engage with us. Tonight, we're talking about marriage myths and how destructive they can be to the relationship, right? Whether you're engaged, you're dating, whether you're single, married, it doesn't matter. I want you guys to drop some marriage myths that you have either heard, you believe, you've seen on TV, your favorite, I don't know about you, but every once in a while I dabble into my reality television. And Married at First Sight.
Oh yes. I love that one.
Full of marriage myths that I'm like, the people in trouble. So, so let us know in the comments, what are some marriage myths that you've seen at married at first sight, 90 Day Fiance, or just things that you heard along the way in life. Some things that I asked this also on Facebook. I'll go first, to be transparent. One of the first ones I used to believe was, and married on Facebook, when I asked this, the first comment was that marriage will make you happy. Marriage will make you happy.
That's a dangerous one right there. I'm gonna have to sip my tea for that one.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. But you know what? This is something that needs to be talked about, because I thought it was so interesting that was the first response on Facebook. I hear it a lot. Marital counseling. I don't know if you've heard it when you're doing marriage coaching in your work, but let's talk about it, Kaara. Let's talk about it. So, let's talk about this myth that marriage will make you happy. give me your feedback when you first hear that.
Emmy said you better be happy before you get married. Yes.
That's
100%.
right, Emmy. You better be
Yes.
happy.
Do not wait for nobody to come and complete you, to, be the person that fulfills you or makes you complete, right? I think like that all encompasses this idea of like completion, like I'm incomplete without a partner, or I'm waiting to get a partner in order to feel happy. And so, yeah, no, guys, no, listen, I always tell my couples, if whatever problems you have now, like whatever problems you're going through, especially for my engaged couples, like who kind of live in la la land for a little bit. And so it's like we're in the rose colored glasses, I love everything about them. They're so wonderful. They can do no wrong. And, it's, those are the phases, especially in the dating phase. That's like really your phase to kind of fact check some of these things, and fact check some of these myths, because you can't expect somebody else to make you happy. And if anything, marriage is going to be one of the hardest things that you've ever signed up for. If you sign up to get a degree, a master's degree, a PhD, marriage is going to be harder than that, right? Like it's just going to be the hardest job that you have signed up for. And you will be in for a rude awakening when you realize this is not what I signed up for though. I didn't
It's
sign.
fun in-
But you know what it is? My husband always say y'all didn't read the fine print in the marriage contract. For better or for worse, let us detail what worse is. And a lot of times what's the thing that we don't realize, this is one concept that I thought about recently, was that we need to learn how to grieve together as partners, right? And if we don't have a skill set or an understanding that, like, how to grieve, how to support each other, because life is full of grief. Life is just full of, I want a child, but I can't have a child. I want a child, but I have a miscarriage, or my mom died, or my dad died, or my sister, like life is just like, we lost our job, we lost our house. Like it is a ongoing cycle of grief, and we're weaving in and out of grief all the time. And so if we think of our partner as like the person that's going to complete us, I rather think of it as like, maybe this is the person that I can grieve with, that I can suffer with, that I can struggle with,
Yeah,
versus like, this is the person that's going to make me happy.
yeah. My husband, who is also an author, just gonna do a quick shameless plug there. He is author of the book Beautiful Suffering, and we were talking about this last year on a panel, and he said, I thought this was so profound. Marry someone you can suffer with.
Yes.
Can suffer with. And I think that is so powerful because it's very different from like our
Yep.
Disney riding off the sunset HGTV,
Mhm.
idea.
Yes.
What you're saying is we hear the vows for better or for worse, but I think a lot of times couples, myself included as a newlywed, I just thought about the better.
Yep.
I just thought
Yep.
better. I didn't think about the worst part. I was
Yep.
like, we're gonna be happy, we're gonna
Yep.
be chilling, we're gonna be going on vacations. You're not thinking about a layoff, you're not
Nope.
thinking about a pandemic, you're not thinking about like trying for a baby and that
Yeah.
like
Health
the
issues, your parents' health
your
issues, like,
parents, illness in the family, loss. You're not thinking about
nope.
true. It's
Most
so
people don't. Yeah, most people don't think about that.
Yeah. So it's so important that we kind of get that reality check in marriage coaching or in premarital
Mhm.
counseling that so there's going to be some bumps
Yes.
in the road. There might be a huge cliff that, is waiting for you
Yes.
to go.
Yeah.
So it's important to be able to, okay, let's tear down this myth and bring
Mhm.
some truth and, a reality check. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
So we have some things in the comment. Let me go to your
Mhm.
comments out on the comments. Back here, Amy said information overload. Oh, this is when we were saying like all the stuff online.
Yeah.
Marriage myth. We got some other ones. Marriage myth, you can talk to your spouse in whichever way you want to because they love you and they know your heart. That's a good one. Kara, I'm gonna let you take that one.
No. Negative, right? Because it's like, we are humans, and so we come with our feelings. And so just because that, your partner, your spouse, if they come and they say something to you in a disrespectful way, let's say, because they're overwhelmed, that doesn't mean that you're going to be like, oh, okay, I understand. Like, I understand that this is coming from a place of hurt. And, like most people are not going to have that skill set
Yeah,
to be able to handle those types of, um, speaking to your spouse in any which way, and so that definitely is a negative.
absolutely. Yeah, I was posting in August a lot of different communication tips and
Yeah.
so forth. And your tone of voice, one of the posts that I shared was talking about your tone of voice matters, right?
Mhm.
Just like you want your tone of voice when you are maybe communicating with other
And that's
adults,
what
and,
Mhm.
at work or just people that you commune with, you want your tone of voice.
Yeah.
And it's so, this one is huge, that each spouse, so not just to women, I know it's
Mhm.
probably here right now, not just women, but men as well, that we don't communicate to our spouses as if they're children, right?
Yeah.
How you speak in a certain tone to children,
Yes.
not doing that to
Yeah. Yeah.
a,
And
right?
those are things that undermine the relationship.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It does. It undermines a relationship, and it doesn't really show that you are probably respectful of the person.
Mhm.
Okay, let me see if I missed any others before we continue. Thank you guys for sharing the marriage myth in
Yeah.
the comment section. Let's see. Tiff. So Blue 3 says, marriage myth, getting married will save or improve the quality of your relationship. Oh,
Ooh, I like that one.
I like that one. I like that one. Getting married will improve the quality of the relationship. So if the relationship, I'll just say an example
It's
of if,
rocky, yeah.
right, in the dating phase or the engagement phase, the myth that, oh, you know what? If we get married, things will
Mhm.
automatically improve.
Yeah.
And I shared a reel about this last week. I almost 100% will guarantee you, I will almost 100% guarantee you, problems that existed before the ring
Yep.
will be waiting for you after the ring. Would
And
you?
not only would it be waiting for you, but it will get worse.
It could even get worse,
Yes.
right? So, putting on a beautiful ceremony, capturing
Mhm.
pictures and friends and family coming from afar, it is a beautiful day. However, we cannot orchestrate this day to resolve problems.
Exactly. Exactly. And the same in the same vein, I think people also have a baby
Oh,
with that in mind as well. So it's like if we have a baby, this is going to take care of all this fighting and all these problems that we have. And I'd be like, Lord Jesus, if only babies were miracle workers to be able to do that, right? That would be a good gift. But sometimes people have the same notion of like, let's have a baby so that we'll be happy or all these problems will go away, not realizing that having a baby is now going to increase your problems and stress 100 times than what you're experiencing right now.
I could only imagine there's already stress in the relationship, there's strain, there's tension in the relationship. And then we add a
Mhm.
little tiny human who is in need of eating
Yes,
and love and affection, and sometimes they can
yes.
get sick. There's, the tension is already high, so I can
Mhm.
imagine it being even higher or more stressful.
Yeah.
What do you typically do with your couples that they've come in with that sort of a solution, like into marriage coaching or in their marriage counseling with you. You know, they've tensions are high. There's lots of issues, high conflict couple, and they say, "All right, Kara, we're gonna have a baby, or we're gonna get married." Like, what do you do in those moments with couples?
Oh my gosh, that's so hard though, you know, because you know, as a therapist, you know, you have to give your clients the right to self-determination, which simply means that they are free to make their own bad choices, right? And so the only thing that you could do is really be a guide. And at the end of the day, they still have to make choices. And I would say like people will despite your best efforts at giving good advice or giving pros and cons or helping, you know, them to see clearly like, you know, what are some of the things, for example, that a baby like I really do have this case where it's like, you know, the relationship isn't at a healthy place. The relationship isn't at an emotionally healthy place. You know, there's already emotional disconnection. There's one partner feels like they're alone in the relationship and they're asking for a baby, right? And I help to make the connection that part of the ask for a baby is to fill the void that's happening in the marriage, right? Like part of you asking for or desiring, besides it being, this has always been part of my dream to become a mother, to become a wife, to become, you know, a family. Like, you know, we dream these dreams from since childhood, right? So these seeds have been planted from a long time ago. But when you get to a space, for example, like if I were in an abusive relationship, it would be hard for me to want to bring a child into an abusive home, as an example, right? It would be really hard for me to say, I want to bring a child into this toxic environment simply because this is something that I've always dreamed of. And, but yet, for a lot of people, the emotions are so high and so impactful in that moment that your logical brain isn't weighing the pros and cons. Your logical brain isn't seeing you're lonely in the relationship now. So can you imagine being lonely and then having to 100% take care of a child? Like imagine being a single parent in a marriage. That is what bringing a child into a marriage would be like if you're already emotionally disconnected and not on the same page connection wise. So then bringing a child, you would end up feeling like a single parent and even feeling more resentful of your partner because they didn't magically step up, right? The baby didn't magically make them become the world's greatest husband. And I think like for people, it's hard for them to really recognize that is not going to happen. Like this vision, we live in fantasy. A lot of times we don't realize that we live in fantasy because when we're suffering, we end up envisioning life, what life could look like if I lived somewhere else, if I was with someone else, if I had a baby, right? Like that's like we're living in a fantasy. And life in fantasy land is wonderful. It is wonderful, right? Like if we visualize
It's time.
you know what I mean? Like if we visualize, I'm so stressed right now, I would like to go to Bali and I just imagine all my stress, you know, just disappearing, right? Like that's a beautiful fantasy. You know, that's a beautiful, and we spend a lot of time, we don't realize, but we spend a lot of time living in this fantasy version of reality. And I think like it sometimes is a hard thing to get people to realize like the reality of what it is that you're dreaming about is going to be very different, you know, because the dream is one thing and reality is another.
Right. You know, you bring up something so important. You know, there's a specific angle that I would take with couples, especially in premarital.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hearing a lot of fantasy come up, like you're saying, because we all would love to live in a little fantasy somewhere in Bali on an island on someone's beach, right? But that's not reality. Um, that's not reality. Or we can talk about, okay, if that's the plan, how do we get there?
Yeah.
I like to ask, you know, when I'm hearing a lot of fantasy coming up, I like to ask like to each person, to, you know, the boyfriend, what are your expectations of
Mm-hmm.
marriage? To the girlfriend or to the wife, what are your expectations of your husband or your future husband in marriage. And I will have them almost like an assignment, like we're going to
Yes, write it down.
white so we can really pull out all the fantasy, pull out all
Mhm.
the, and let's look at both of their responses,
Yeah.
so that we can really take a look at what we're about to step into and how
Yeah.
realistic it is and how
Mm.
problematic the fantasies are.
Yeah.
Um, just so that we can be clear. And what I like to do is say, hey, these are his expectations.
Mhm.
These are expectations. You know, how do you envision yourself like living up to these expectations? And it's a really interesting ongoing conversation
Mhm. Yeah.
because they're honest in the moment and say, that's not me. That's no, I
Yep.
can't do this. I can't do this. This is not realistic for me.
Yep.
Or you can take another route of saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, that looks great. Yeah, sign me
Yes.
up."
Yes. And just to even throw a monkey wrench in there, like couples need to realize too that the expectations that we discussed today are subject to change, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so, so even when I say, for example, like I might be 25 years old and because I'm living in fantasy land, I'm envisioning this life with, 10 children and staying at home. And then after the first child, I'm like, nope, nope. That I believe my dream was somehow misaligned, right? After the first child, you're like, no, that I don't think that's what because when people then experience like having a child, then it's like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And now I have to renegotiate a whole set of roles that I had agreed to. Right? Like I may have agreed to, be the person that's the homemaker or the person that's going to cook, the person that's going to clean, the person that's going to take care of. I might have been like, oh, I'm going to be like, Mary Poppins and, all this, like whatever you think yourself of like as a mother. And then you realize like motherhood is not what I thought it was. And now I need to renegotiate the role of being a mother and a wife. And I no longer can cook every day. And I'm no longer able to clean every day. I'm no longer able to, the things that I agreed to before we get married, like I can't do that. And I think that can be a scary place for people because it's like, you don't know how you're going to change. And I even tell new moms, like moms that I see who are pregnant and this is their first baby. I'm like, you don't know how this baby is going to like change you. You don't know what experience you're going to have even from delivering that could be traumatic to the health issues of the baby to how it's going to impact your relationship. Like you have to leave space for change and you have to leave space for the unknown and we have to leave space to renegotiate our roles and that nothing, even like as we discussed, nothing is written in stone. And so I think if people can at least create an environment in their relationship where we can like really love each other enough to listen to each other's hearts, pain points, struggles, and say, yeah, like I'm okay, with you let's figure out a different way, let's figure out a meal plan. Let's figure out, how we can get a housekeeper in here. Like, we don't have to be slaves to the things that like just because we said yes this is what we were going to do that we have to then be that way forever.
I love that. I love that renegotiation conversation
Yeah.
because like expectations is something
Mhm.
important to us and premarital and even in your early phases of your marriage. But like you said, there's different phases, right? You work with new
Yeah.
moms probably struggling with postpartum
Mm-hmm.
depression, those adjustments, and how has it impacted your relationship? Now you're new parents, so
Yep.
I yeah, a renegotiation conversation, or let's revisit those expectations
Mhm.
in a different phase of life,
Yeah.
right? We're no longer newlyweds or newly dating. Like,
Mhm.
we're responsible for a little
Yeah.
human. We got bills. Things are a little different. So it's important to discuss, okay, how do we make our lives easier? How do we still
Yeah.
stay a couple and as a
Mhm.
family unit now that little one here with us?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right. Thank you guys for joining. If you guys have any other marriage myths, you guys shared some really good ones earlier. Any marriage myths that you want us to address, go ahead and just drop it in the chat. Drop it in the chat. Some other ones that I had shared with you, I'll just hit maybe one or two more
Okay.
before in Q&A. I had sent you an email from the Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. Everything good in our relationship will get better.
Mm,
Everything good in our relationship will get better. Can you address that marriage myth?
yeah,
Everything good.
that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one because now now it's like we don't envision how something that we enjoy or something that we like or something that we're already doing that is working, like it's almost like we can't even envision that becoming non-existent,
Right.
right? Or doesn't exist anymore. And so sometimes the things that works in our relationship and the things that, it's like I think of like date night as an example, right? Like that's something that's fun. That's something that helps you stay connected. That's something that, a lot of couples enjoy because, we're having a great time together. And then the fun aspect disappears. Like, like where did the fun go in our relationship? How can we stop going out as much? How can we stop, just having fun things to do? And then it's like, whoop, we just took fun out of a relationship just like that, simply from just becoming lax.
Mhm.
That's one of the things that tends to happen when we do get married, is that we get comfortable. And then when we get comfortable, we get lax, we get relaxed. And when we get relaxed, we stop doing certain things because we take it for granted. And then when we no longer put that effort in anymore, you the good things can actually disappear. They can actually disappear and become less and less and less. And it almost reminds me of the comment that somebody had made earlier about, like, we can talk to our spouse anyway because they know our heart.
Mhm.
And it's almost like, well, I don't have to continue trying because we love each other,
Mm.
because, we like each other. So I no longer have to continue, putting out this effort to serve
Yeah.
them. I no longer have to put out this effort to date my spouse. I no longer have to put out this effort or energy to really make time to connect. And it's really when we get married that we need to even be like way more intentional than we were when we were dating, because literally time, like, our time gets evaporated. Like, somehow when we were dating, we have all the time in the world, and then when we
So
get married,
true.
how are we so busy? Like I'm just like seeing you at 11 o'clock at night. Like, what's going on?
All the time, always on the phone, like falling asleep. When's the last time you fell asleep on the phone?
Girl,
Like, what?
no. And then it's like, you snoring? Like, wait a minute. Like, I'm here pouring out my heart, and you like, oh, you're snoring.
Pouring out my heart to you, and you snoring.
Like, that's not when you get married, right? It's like,
But that's, you point out a really good myth, though, right? Like, that's a
yeah,
really good, everything good, we'll still do date nights. We'll still, pursue one another. But that's not necessarily going to happen if we're not being really intentional
yep.
about having date night, having, rich conversation, and intentional
Mhm.
about
Yeah,
where our,
yeah,
like a quick check-in. How are we doing? How are you doing?
yeah.
So that's a good point. That's a really good point.
And I also want to say too, like, the everything good will get better. So like, it's almost like it can, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it can get better, but not without effort. Like, you have to put in a lot of intentional effort when you get married. Like, you have to be intentional about connecting. You have to be intentional about communicating your needs, your wants, your desires, your pain points. You have to be intentional about spending time together and spending quality time together. And those are the things that can get better. Like, you can become more, like, intimately connected. Like, you can expand or increase in your capacity for love. You can, even increase or enjoy or learn each other sexually, and grow in that area. But it's not gonna happen if we're not intentional, right? It's not like time makes that better, right? It's not like time makes communication better, or time makes intimacy better, or time makes, us better. We like, even like as an individual, for me to get better as an individual means that I have to intentionally pour into myself. I have to be wanting to grow, wanting to expand my inner awareness of my emotional. I have to want to do that. And then I have to put in the work to do that as an
Right.
individual, And so the same is true for a marriage, is that we can get better with time, but not without effort.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people trying to get better with just time and no effort.
Yeah, one thing I noticed just through observation and just through meeting with couples, and I've shared it with probably all of my couples at this point, when I say, you guys been together for X amount of years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, that's great. You guys have time under your belt. And I say, it's not having time together, it's what you do within
With
that
the time.
time. Right?
Yes.
You could be together. You could be arguing about this thing for 5 years, 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
be talking about it, for 5, 10 years, but what are you doing to resolve? What are you doing to get better as individuals, like you said? And then what are we doing together to improve as a couple, to get stronger,
Mm-hmm.
more intentional, to grow as a couple within that time? Because if we're not in that time, we can't expect, oh man, we should be better communicators by now,
Right.
be better lovers by now. The sex should be better by now. But
Yeah.
what have we been doing, like you said, to actually be intentional in those areas of our marriage? I
Yeah.
want you to know this. I'm going to take a quick curve because you're mentioning it a few times. Pain points. Pain
Okay.
points. You said it twice, and I was like, ooh, we got to go back to that. What are pain points? How would you describe or define a pain point in a relationship?
Mm. So I would say a pain point can be an area where one or both people are struggling with something, right? And it could be that it's only one partner, right? Like I always tell my couples, if one person has a problem, we have a problem. We, the relationship, have a problem, right?
That,
So it's not this is her issue or this is his issue. It's not my issue. No, no, no. Once one person has a issue, it's our issue, right? And so I sort of like to lead with that to say that if any person within the relationship has has a problem, has a wound, has a raw spot, an area that they're extra sensitive in, and it may or may not have anything to do with the person that you're with. It could be something that I come to the relationship with, like I come to the relationship with abandonment triggers from my childhood, from my family background, from my past trauma that I have experienced growing up, from past relationship trauma. I could come to the table with certain raw spots that may have nothing to do with my partner. But now that but that is a package deal now,
yes.
you know?
Yeah.
So I if I come with raw spots trauma, it's kind of like how we tell people, like, you bring baggage into the relationship and we don't count what that baggage is, or we don't consider what's in that baggage. And a lot of that baggage is raw spots from my life, my life experience that predated the relationship. And then some raw spots are things that happened in the relationship, right? Like relationship injuries, like affairs or domestic violence or verbal abuse or spiritual abuse, things that have happened within the relationship can create wounded areas in the relationship.
Yeah.
That would be like pain points. So pain points could be things that happen in the relationship that are hurtful and that are like a breach of contract to the relationship. And then it could be things that I bring or you bring to the relationship that is part of our past, and it's part of us.
Right.
And so it will almost remain part of us, and the relationship and my partner needs to be sensitive to
Yeah.
that.
Yep. Yep. And I think that's another reason why it's so important to discuss these things in session, these pain points,
Mhm.
these emotional wounds, so that we don't assume, right, the marriage myth. Once we get married, it's
It's
all
all
going to
going
be smooth sailing.
away. Nope.
we get married, it'll settle down. It'll figure it itself
It's
out,
time to
right?
unpack the baggage now that we get married. That's what happens. It's like, oh, we didn't know what was in the baggage, but guess what? When we get married, it comes out in the form of triggers.
Wow.
You know, we end up triggering each other. You might say something, rub up on my raw spot, then I
Right.
have a reaction to that, and you're like, where did that come from? Like, why? Sometimes it's only when people get married that they see sort of like the other side of their spouse. They see the other side of them that might be when they're triggered because they never had those big trigger moments when they were dating.
That's true.
You know, and they're shocked and surprised, but it's because we didn't unpack the baggage. We didn't look to see what was the baggage that I was bringing in, you were bringing in, we were bringing in to the table. But when we get married, the bag starts to overflow and it comes out.
It comes
It comes out.
it comes out, right? Marriage does not hide any flaws or traumas, right? Last month we talked a lot about individual trauma, but as a matter in your marriage, it could expose the trauma. It will
Yes.
any previous trauma you've had. This is the most intimate relationship that you are committed to for the rest of your life,
Yep.
right? So going to absolutely trigger some areas that the person may not even know they're triggering you.
Yeah.
Know that this is a pain point. Oh, this is a sensitive point for you because we never discussed it. Or we believe the myth that all of my problems will go away with marriage, with this union, which is simply not true. No problems disappear in marriage. As a matter of fact, they're exposed and there's like a heightened awareness of this problem because now you are sharing a bed with someone who now has to be exposed to this problem, or they might even be exposed to symptoms of the problem because you're not ready to talk about it yet.
Yeah.
But they know that wait, you're off. Like your attitude, tone of voice, how you're treating me, how you're treating others in the home. Something is wrong because they've been triggered. So if you didn't get the point yet, it is so crucial. It is so crucial. And I'm saying it because I care about you and I love you guys. It's so crucial and important that we address, these myths before we get married and even after we get married. Okay. Let's say you believe the myth, like a lot of us do, marriage will make me happy, take away all my problems. In those first years of marriage or wherever you are now, it's so important to address like, okay, what are some of my beliefs about this marriage? What are some of my beliefs and what's true, what is not true, what is working, what is not working for us? Because maybe a belief system is clearly not working, but we're still applying it to the marriage. Okay, I think I see a question. And we're right about this time that we're going to take some questions. So if you guys have any questions about marriage myths, marriage coaching, relationships, please let us know and we will address them. Let's see here. Okay, here's a good question. Indigo Third posted. Thank you. Is there a such thing as never getting something resolved? Marriage. Is there such a thing as never getting something resolved, ? Or and moving forward?
Yeah.
So it's like a two-part question. Okay.
That's a really good question because Gottman did a lot of research on this, and he says that almost 70% of problems that couples face fall into the unresolvable category. That's another thing that most couples don't know before getting married.
True.
I remember one of my couples when I told them that, they were like, "What? Why didn't you tell us this before?" I'm like, yeah, because that helps to reset expectations, right? That some of the problems or some of the issues that we do bring to the table with our partner will not get resolved. And we do have to learn to live with it. We do have to figure out how are we going to live with it or deal with it. And so there's a minor category. When you think of 70%, that's like most of your problems.
True.
Most of your problems are unresolvable.
True.
And we didn't know this before we got married, though.
We didn't know because it's an absolute thinking like there's a problem, we need to
There's a
solve it.
solution. Exactly.
Or we need to solve it immediately.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that immediate gratification, that may not come, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the situation, that problem may take a few weeks, a few months, a
Mm-hmm.
few to resolve.
Yeah. You know, and as you say that, I think that that's why sometimes people are frustrated with couples therapy too, because they do come in with the expectation that if I go to couples therapy, it's going to fix the problem and it's going to fix it quickly. And so couples tend to, there's some research that says the average number of therapy sessions, couples therapy sessions is 7, which is a very low amount,
That's
right?
super low. Definitely go
Because,
over.
because for me, I only count that as 3 sessions because the first 4 was the intake, right? So the first 4 sessions was the intake. And I'm like, you're not even doing any couples therapy really in the intake, right? I'm meeting with the couple, I'm meeting with both of them individually. Then we meet back together to kind of share the results of the assessment. So we haven't really started to work yet. And then people will be like, you know, we've been to couples therapy for so long. And it's only been 3 weeks, right? Since then. And he's still, you know, XYZ or she's still XYZ. And so I think even people's expectations of timeline for change and timeline of how long does it take to resolve an issue, even when you come to couples therapy, right? Like some of these is sometimes there's an affair and people don't realize that the length of time, like once there's like a big emotional trauma type injury in your relationship, we have now multiplied how long this is going to take. Like this is not, you know, I've had couples before come in and it's like, okay, before we even complete the intake, it's like, okay, so what do I need to do? And it's like, you need to hang in there for like a couple years, right? Graciously and patiently, because this is a long haul project. This is not, you know, come to couples therapy for 3 sessions and she should be okay. That's not how that works, you know? And so, yeah. Or he okay, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I love Dr. John Gottman's work. He is renowned, for those who don't know, a renowned relationship expert in the U.S. And I like when I learned about his theory about, you know, unsolvable conflict and resolvable conflict. That is how I started to pose the idea of conflict to couples, right? So, and because I'm also very strength based, so my approach is, you guys have strengths. Some way, somehow, y'all manage to be together and not kill each other for this amount of time. So
Yeah.
that's we're doing good so far. So we're doing good. And even, you know, when you listen, like you said, that is so true. Those first 3 or 4 sessions, as heavy conflict as it can be, I'm listening to hear the strengths. I'm listening to hear even the little areas where they were able to resolve conflict. And I say, okay, you got an issue right here that used to be unsolved conflict, but some way, somehow, y'all moved it over here to resolvable conflict. Okay, let's keep working to see how we can continue to do that.
Yeah.
Again, like you said, because now, you know, you hear it, therapy is a process. You hear it, couples counseling is a process. But when you're in it, you realize, okay, be here for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
We're going to be here because you got to kill pride. You got to kill impatience. You got to kill those marriage myths.
Yep.
That's one of them.
Yep.
Right? And it's almost
And you have
like,
to build a safe space.
yes.
Yeah.
You make a safe space for each other as a couple.
Yep.
And non-judgmental towards one another, and even non-judgmental towards each other's marriage myths and marriage beliefs haven't been very helpful in the process. So it's a lot of work, but you know what? We are here for the work.
Yes. Yes.
It's a lot of work to do, but like you said, I love what you pointed out. It is no overnight process. This is not going to get done in. The problem didn't come in 3 weeks.
Yep.
The problem come up in 3 weeks. so it's not going to be resolved in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, we got another question. I'm going to let you get that one, Kaara. Can you see the question?
This one, when you have an issue and it gets swept under the rug, and then the spouse brings up something along those lines, is it okay to add your issue? That's a good one. Yes, or just allow their issue. Yeah. So usually, like whenever that happens, it means that we're triggered, right? Like if I bring up an issue and then you now bring up your issue, now it's because me bringing up my issue triggers your issue, and then it's like, we're just in a cycle. I call it a cycle. We're just in a conflict loop at that point where nobody's issue really gets resolved, right? And it's sort of like a defense mechanism at that point to add to the pot, to add fire to the pot, right? It's almost like, okay, so you want to talk about the dishes in the sink? Well, let me tell you about, all the work that I've been doing taking care of these children. And that's more of a defensive posture when we do something like that. And then that's not very helpful to getting our needs met, or even helping our partner to actually see our pain. Right. And so I sort of believe that it is more helpful for couples to create an agreement where when we do have an issue, like if I have an issue and I want to bring this up for us to discuss, that we have an agreement where I can say, hey, is this a good time for us to talk, or when can we talk? Because I would like to talk about X. So that way you have a time to mentally prepare. You have time to kind of like get your life in order, get your mind right, get your spirit right. You have all of that time to be able to say, okay, let me figure out how I can show up for my partner and be the type of listener they need in that moment, right? And I think like if we create those types of agreements, and it's both ways, right? Both of us get our needs met. It's not like a one-way street where it's like I bring up an issue and then you just have to like suck up your issue and forget about it. But we need a clear space so that there isn't this clutter of, well, you did this, and what about this time? And then we bring like 10 other issues to the table of the times in the past. And really the reason why we're doing that is because we're trying really hard for our partner to see our pain. And what it is that we're not actually saying, I feel hurt, or I feel disappointed, or I feel alone, or I feel abandoned, or I feel rejected. Instead, we're saying, I don't like it when you come home late. I don't like it when you're on the phone. I don't like it when. And so usually like sometimes issues are packaged in a way where it masks the hurt and the pain that we're actually experiencing. And so when we package an issue like, I don't like it when you do X, your partner is going to respond in a defensive way. But you do that all the time. Right. And what about that time that you did the same thing, or you came home late, or you were on your phone, or you work late, and then it's like, it's because we set it up the wrong way from the get-go,
That's a good point. That's a really good point. So not doing the going back and forth, like bringing up, I bring up issue, you bring, because you're, like you said, now we're just bringing up multiple issues. We're not actually bringing up a resolve, or, I love what you said. A lot of times people don't, and we don't learn to communicate this way.
No.
I learned this when I was in therapy.
Therapist, right?
I was like, oh, we don't learn to communicate. That really hurt me. Or I feel like, you don't care about our schedule, or you don't dinner with me, So it's definitely vulnerable. It's a very different way of communicating. But to your point, now we're actually really talking about what's going on.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Because the dishes is too.
Nope.
Who the things that we, and I shared this with my couples, when you bring the dishes or the kids got picked up late, that's just surface. That's
surface. Yep.
That's on
tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg.
That's the tip of the iceberg.
Yep.
But if you iceberg, what makes it so powerful is all of that ice underwater. Massive. massive structure. It's kind of like our issues that we have, right? We just bring up the tip of the iceberg, but and I tell them, I'm like, we really haven't addressed the real issue. We've been here for 3 weeks though,
Mhm.
but I'm still waiting to hear what are we really addressing? What's
Yeah.
the problem here? Oh,
Yeah.
the problem is betrayal.
Mhm.
Oh, the problem is feeling left out or being disrespected. That's the real issue.
Yes. Yeah.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Okay, so I'm not going to take any more of your time. You
This
see how
was
the
good.
time just goes so
I know, right? The time just like evaporated.
so fast. It goes really fast. Okay, last thing, how can people find you if they are in Georgia or in Florida? They are looking for a therapist or a couples coach. How can they find you so we can let the people know?
Yes, you can visit us at authenticmarriages.com, email info@authenticmarriages.com, and of course, follow us on Instagram at authentic.marriages.
Awesome, awesome. And authenticmarriages.com provides what kind of services so everyone here knows
Yeah.
what kind of.
So I provide couples therapy, individual therapy for trauma, as well as couples coaching group with my husband and couples retreats.
Couples retreat. That's right. Where you guys here?
We haven't decided yet. We're
Okay,
still
okay.
contemplating. We're deciding between St. Lucia, Antigua, and Barbados. We
I love it.
we need some help to get some. I might need to put a poll up.
Listen, I already told my husband, I was like, listen, we need to start planning. We may have to jump on with authentic marriages.
Yes, that would be so good.
And yes, I've always wanted to do something like that. So thank you guys so much for jumping on the live with us.
Yeah,
We're going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you, Kaara, for joining with us.
this
This
was
was
fun.
fun. It was not scary, right? It wasn't that
No,
scary.
not at all. And the time just went by so fast.
I told you. I was like, okay, we'll jump on for 30 minutes. An hour goes by. I'm telling you, it goes by so, so fast. But check out the replay if you're just jumping on. We talked about the marriage myths that can be very damaging. We talked about marriage coaching, which Kaara and her husband provides. Both of us are also couples counselors who provide premarital counseling as well. So
Mhm.
all the things, all the
All
things
the things.
in regards to couples, relationships. So this was really good. This is
This
good. If
was.
you're in Georgia, this was really important for
Yes.
my friends, whoever's watching this, or send it to someone. If you're in Georgia, Kaara is also licensed in the
Yes.
state of Georgia and Florida. I'm licensed in Florida, but she's dual licensed, so that is great for her reach.
Yeah.
So thank you, Kaara. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I will call you
Dad.
after this.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.